Have you ever experienced something strange, scary, or unexplained? Consider sending it my way. Just go to astheravendreams.com and click the button to do so. And of course, thank you. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know if this story really qualifies as a glitch in the Matrix, but I'm going to submit it as one because there was some weird level of synchronicity that occurred for sure. And I think that synchronicities count as glitches. Plus, I've heard a few stories about weird dreams on your glitch videos, so maybe this one would be right at home with those. Honestly, the whole thing really did send a chill down my spine, and while it might not mean much to some, it meant something to me. A few weeks ago, I had this really bizarre and vivid dream. It was one of those dreams that was so realistic that it felt like I was really there and living it. It wasn't a happy or pleasant dream. Far from it. It was traumatic, unnerving. It was one of those dreams that make you jump up in a panic because it really messed with you inside. In the dream, I was, for some reason, standing on a long bridge in the middle of a storm. I was standing on the side where the sidewalk was on the bridge, like I'd been walking across it. And I remember thinking that the storm had hit really quick. The rain was just coming down non-stop. And I was standing there watching the water start to go crazy, like it was flooding. Suddenly, the water started rising rapidly and pelting the bottom of the bridge. I just remember thinking that I needed to run. I took off toward the end of the bridge, only for the water to go over it, and the bridge started cracking and collapsing in front of me. I remember slipping and trying to stand up so that I could run the other way, but the more that I struggled, the more the bridge started to just crumble apart like it was made of styrofoam. The more I struggled to get up, the more it fell apart in my hands and under my feet. The worst part about the whole thing, and all the anxiety and panic that I was feeling, was that I just kept thinking, where is my wife? It felt like I knew that I was going to die, but the whole time I was screaming out for her and trying to figure out where she was, and if she had gotten off the bridge in time, though I couldn't recall her ever being there with me at all. I woke up in a cold sweat, completely drenched, and actually crying. It took me a while, but I eventually calmed myself down and convinced myself that everything was okay. My wife was still asleep right beside me. There were no bridges in my house to worry about, and it was just this weird thing that my brain had made up for whatever reason. Now, that in and of itself was weird and distressing, but it was just a dream. However, fast forward a couple of days when my wife and I were just sitting outside on our patio and having our Sunday morning coffee. Out of the blue, my wife mentioned that she had a really weird dream the other day that was bothering her, which immediately caught my attention. She mentioned that when she was standing near a river just watching the water, when it started raining really hard, and the river started rising and flooding. As she went through recounting the dream, a knot started to form in my stomach. She said that she was off to the side of the bridge, and she watched as the water started to tear the bridge apart. And then she got hit with this wave of sadness and terror as she looked over and saw someone on the bridge that looked like me. She said that as she watched the bridge crumble and watched this person struggle, she tried to yell out and go to help them, but she couldn't. Something in the dream had pretty much cemented her in place, and she was stuck just watching the whole scene play out in front of her as this person that looked like me was stumbling, and then was eventually swept into the river. She described how she was crying in the dream, rooted to the spot as she watched it all happen, feeling this disgusting sense of helplessness. Every little detail that she told me mirrored my dream. The storm, the bridge crumbling under the pressure of the water, me desperately trying to run to safety. It all played out the same, but from her perspective. It was as if we had experienced the same dream, but from two different points of view. I felt a cold shiver run down my spine as the uncanny synchronicity of the dreams set in. We had both seen the same terrifying event, experienced the same emotion, but from two different perspectives. It was like the worlds in our unconscious mind had a crossover episode or something. It left me a bit rattled, but I just sort of played it off to her and said something like, "Well, I don't plan to be on any bridges anytime soon, so I think we're good." I ended up not telling her about my dream because it kind of felt like it would have been awkward to explain and just say, "Oh yeah, me too." It did leave a bit of a strange mentality, though. Can two people be so connected that they share dreams? Like, I understand finishing each other's sentence, but that's a conscious thing. This was completely subconscious or unconscious. Dreams are your brain filling in the empty spaces, at least from what I know, but this was really weird to me. So, I guess I have to ask the question, was this just two brains so connected in our simulation that we made up the same movie in our unconscious state? Did we both somehow connect to an alternate existence where this actually happened? And we maybe saw it play out while we were asleep? Hopefully it wasn't a premonition, because if so, I'm avoiding every bridge for the rest of my life. In the end, I don't know, and I'll just happily live with the thought that this weird thing happened, and maybe I don't need an explanation. I would like one, sure, but I don't need one. Maybe it's for the best that this just remains unexplained. I work in a plant that makes trailers. Some are made of aluminum, some of stainless steel. These trailers are used to transport food or chemicals with trucks. The whole process is done in this plant, from shaping the metal to welding, cleaning, and spray painting. The last part is placing the tank on the chassis, attaching the wheels and other accessories. My job is the chemical cleaning of the stainless steel tanks. At the time, I had put a ladder against the tank to get on top, which is about 4 meters high, or 13 feet. The part where the ladder touches the tank was a bit tricky, because there was little room to place your foot. One day, I climbed the ladder carrying a spraying pump in one hand. I reached the spot where I could just place the tip of my foot, and I slipped. But the next thing I remembered, I was standing back at the bottom of the ladder with the pump still in my hand, and no recollection of a fall. I was completely confused how this was possible. A colleague could not understand either and said that I could have been killed or seriously injured. The situation was taken up with security, and now I have a completely safe platform to get on top of the tank. I like to think that it just wasn't my time to die, and my guardian angel stepped in. Nor was it a glitch in the Matrix. Okay, so, admittedly, I was not, prior to this incident, a big believer in glitches. Heck, if I'm being honest, I sort of pride myself in my own skepticism. I don't and won't even subscribe to religions, which I find incredibly far-fetched. I mean, not to steal some wisdom from a man far smarter than I, but I just believe that not every religion could possibly be true, but it's certainly possible for them all to be false. But I digress. That aside, I am not and was not under the influence of anything mind-altering. With that, on with the events of this past evening. So, I went out to do some shopping, and while in the store, my girlfriend asked me to bring back ibuprofen. I respond by telling her that I had found a single bottle recently, and it was high in the cabinets, so if she wanted to wait for me to get back home to grab it instead of her inconveniencing herself, I would be back soon. And so, with the shopping done, I come home, yell to her that I'm back, put away the groceries, and proceed to tell her about my crippling stomach pains. It was a real bad tummy day, which is somewhat routine for me. After I was through complaining, I grab a soda and go over the food that I just bought. She becomes excited for a smoothie that I got her, and I say to hang tight, and I'll go grab it from the fridge. And here is where it gets bizarre. I return with the smoothie and recall that she also needed that ibuprofen, so I go to the cabinet. I reach up top to grab the only bottle of ibuprofen that I know of, and turn to hand it to her. She looks sort of confused and says, "You just gave me the ibuprofen," and she holds up the bottle. At which point, I am completely baffled, and I explain to her calmly that not only did I not do that, I definitely only knew where one bottle was. Period. She and I go over the whole chain of events, and the point in time she claims I gave her the bottle was between complaining about my stomach and getting a soda, as though I'd left the room and come back in with the ibuprofen. But the only bottle I knew of was in the cabinet in the same room as her. As in, I could not possibly have left the room and come back with it, because to my knowledge there was none outside of that one bottle. I am extremely aware of only one bottle as she needs it routinely, and we thought we had none about a week ago, after which I discover the one rogue bottle cleaning, and I placed it in the cabinet knowing full well she would need it sooner or later, and I would have one on hand. I actually almost gave it to someone else who was over complaining of a headache, but checked, and verified that I only had the one bottle, and said, "I have only one bottle and my girlfriend's gonna need it." Then proceeded to give them the option of any of the other analgesics that I had. So, you see, there's not a snowball's chance in hell that I mistakenly had two bottles to my knowledge. But moreover, I have, as everyone does, knowledge of what it's like to just have a brain fart and not realize something I did on autopilot. This was not that. To conclude, I don't have a history of any cognitive malfunctions, no hiccups or holes in my memory, and I don't do anything risky to jeopardize my gray matter. I firmly believe the brain to be a terrible thing to waste. And, also, before anyone asks, the ibuprofen in the cabinet and the bottle she had matched perfectly, even though it was from CVS, which I had not gone to in a long time. I still checked the sales receipts from the store to make sure that I didn't seriously have a gap in recollection of my picking it up while out. This is truly a case for which I am totally in disbelief. And honestly, if I was anyone else reading this, I would just say, yeah, either dude forgot he had a second bottle in the cabinet or she was messing with him. Believe me when I say, folks, I wish that I could just chalk this up to such a simple explanation. The OP made a few edits that we'll go over here. Edit 1. I want to thank everyone who has replied here. I didn't imagine I'd find myself engaged in some very provoking lines of thinking, as a result of so many interesting notions having been introduced. I want to address some of the developments because there's a lot of neat stuff being bounced back and forth in the comments. Edit 2. The bottles. For those who wondered how exactly the bottles were entirely identical, I went back to verify the UPC, and every other random code or numeral match. Same size, pill count, dates, everything. Edit 3. No psychoactive substances have been taken by either of us before this event, or, for that matter, even as this thread has developed. We simply don't get all too inebriated all too often, My own health and stomach issues necessitate meds, but nothing that causes confusion. I take a diuretic and laxative for fluid retention and a slow tummy. And even though I take those routinely, this was at the end of a long day, well beyond how long those meds would have impacted me. And I never drink. My job demands that I'm very on point with no room for hangovers or anything that could cloud my judgment. Beyond this, I take specific amino acids for chronic pain and drink Indo tea, neither of which are psychoactive or inebriate me, and hadn't been taken in the time frame of this event. Edit 4. We have experienced other weirdness surrounding different incidents, but I could have logically reasoned out how human error and confusion could have played a role. However unlikely in some of those, and thus, that is what I chose to believe when and where I could. This instance doesn't provide me the luxury, making it a cut above on my creepy scale. Now, with enough time, incidents, and this one specifically, I am quicker to say, I just don't know. Some things can't be explained, as I'm too dumb and typically human, no sixth sense here or specialized knowledge, to say that I've insight into how and why of everything. In truth, even with what most would call a large volume of bizarre in my life, I've tried to remain a skeptical human to present date, and don't dwell too much on any of that bizarro stuff. Again, this incident was different, and somewhat undeniable. I have a weird glitchy thing that happened to me when I was around 9, which would have been the late 90s. At the time, my mom had an older Chevy Astro van that we were looking to get rid of. I only have an older brother, and there are about 8 years between us, so at the time he would have been around 17 and was already saving for his own car. Times were a bit rough around then, and my parents had decided they were going to be a one-car family, since having the van wasn't really necessary anymore. Of course, I was a bit sad about that, because the van was a cornerstone of my childhood. It was a slate gray beast that had seen better days for sure, but it also punctuated literally every trip that I'd been a part of from the day I was born. So, yeah, it was sad, but I get it. Anyways, one day my mom told me that I needed to change out of my pajamas and put on some real clothes because someone was coming over to look at the van, and she didn't want me running around in my Superman pants. I found it a bit odd. Normally I would just stay inside while the adults did their adult things, but for some reason she was adamant that I needed to be dressed so that I could be outside with her and this stranger. Obviously I did what I was told, and sure enough, she expected me to be outside when the man came to look at the van. The man that showed up was pretty nondescript. He was a bit taller than my dad, wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses. He seemed friendly enough, chatting with my mom about the van, asking about the mileage, any issues that it had, just the typical car buying stuff really. After a bit of conversation and back and forth, I remember the man looked over to me and said, "What do you think, champ? Should I buy the van?" I remember thinking it was neat that he asked me, like I was making the decisions for him. And I told him that it was a really good van, and I thought that he would like it if he bought it. He laughed and said okay, telling my mom that he would take it. I remember that after that I was bored out of my mind because they had to do the whole process for selling the car. I was sitting there playing with pebbles in the driveway while they chatted more and filled out the bill of sale, and the title and all that stuff. Then, I watched as the man handed my mom the cash, she handed him the keys, and he drove off. My mom seemed pleased, he seemed happy, and the day went on as normal after that. The next morning, I woke up and went downstairs for breakfast, only to glance out the window and see the van sitting right there in the side driveway. I was a bit confused and surprised to see it sitting in the driveway again, but I asked my mom if the guy had brought it back for some reason. When I asked this, she looked up from her coffee and sort of just stared at me like I was speaking gibberish. She said that no one had come to look at the van yet, and that she'd only gotten a call from one lady that was going to come out on Saturday to check it out. I mentioned the guy in the ball cap that had come over to buy it yesterday, described him, mentioned that he gave her cash and everything. She just looked at me like I had two heads. I tried to explain it to her the best that I could. I even mentioned the title and the bill of sale that she had written up so that he could drive it away. Things that no 9-year-old should know about randomly. My mom was insistent that it hadn't happened, and asked me if I was feeling okay. I was genuinely taken aback. I couldn't understand how I could have such a vivid memory of an event that, apparently, never took place. Had I dreamed the whole thing? I really don't think so. It was definitely a real event that happened. I was a kid, sure, but I could tell the difference between dreaming and reality. It was a while before I could push the whole thing out of my head, even at that age. I knew something weird had happened. The van did eventually sell, but not to the guy that I remember buying it. Looking back, it's one of those events that really does bother me. I have no explanation for it, because nothing logical makes sense. My mom wouldn't benefit from lying to me about it, and I'm pretty sure there wasn't some shady deal that they made or something. It was a car sale. However, for whatever reason, that sale just never happened, and someone else got the van. No idea how or why, but that is how it happened. I've told this story to several people, and no one has really believed me. They just awkwardly shrugged and moved on. But maybe someone on here might appreciate this story. Anyway, a couple of years ago, I had just graduated high school and didn't know what to do with my life yet, or which college to go to. Since my sister is a lot older than me, by the time I graduated, she had already gotten married, had a baby, and moved into a new house. They had just put in a brand new kitchen, and then they went to visit her husband's parents, that live in another state. My sister asked me if I wanted to house sit and feed their cat 2 times a day. I said yes, because I was still living with my parents and wanted some time to myself, without my parents constantly nagging at me about what I wanted to do with my life. They were right, of course, but I wanted some peace. So, I stayed at my sister's house. I played with the cat, fed the cat regularly, watched movies, used their PlayStation, and so on. I often had to stand in the kitchen and wait for the cat to finish her food. She was a very picky eater, and I had to make sure that she actually ate what I fed her. So, I was standing there every day, looking around randomly, being a little bored. I vividly remember that the kitchen was in a really bright red color. My sister thought that it looked great, and her husband just let her pick the color without interfering, because my sister is the one that cooks anyways. I wasn't that interested in kitchens, but I definitely noticed the red color, and I thought a couple of times that it was too bright and eye-catching. They might actually get sick of it easily and have to pay a huge amount of money to change it. I also took pictures and videos of the house to show them to my girlfriend. We joked about getting married and buying a house like this too, even though we both felt way too young for that and didn't even have jobs yet. I also filmed the kitchen and said to my girlfriend jokingly that I wouldn't let her choose a color like this because it's not my cup of tea. It's too ugly. She agreed with me. She wouldn't let me choose a color like this either. Several weeks later, I got accepted into college and moved, so I didn't stay at my sister's house at all. Approximately 1 year later, I was back at my parents' house for holidays, and my sister invited us all to dinner. I helped bringing out the food and returning used dishes and loading them into the dishwasher. While doing that, I noticed that they had a white kitchen now. I was confused, but I didn't say anything because there was a lot going on. A couple of hours later, I texted my sister because I remembered the new kitchen, and I thought it was funny that I was right all along. I texted her, saying, "Why'd you change your kitchen so soon? I thought you would get sick of the red, but I didn't think you would change the kitchen to a white one that fast." She was really confused because she had no idea what I was talking about. We texted back and forth, and she explained that their kitchen had always been white, from day one when they had it installed in the new house. There has never been a red kitchen, not even in the planning phases. I thought that this was extremely weird, but I didn't want to give up. I suspected that she was pranking me. I looked up the pictures and videos on my phone. My heart sank when I saw it. The kitchen was white in every picture and video. I asked my girlfriend if she remembered me sending her the videos of my sister's house, and if yes, what color was the kitchen? And she said yes. She remembered watching the video and talking to me about the red kitchen. It couldn't have been a dream. I definitely stayed at my sister's house. My sister remembered me staying there and feeding the cat until they came back from their vacation. And my girlfriend clearly remembered watching the video with a red kitchen in it, but the color has changed in the video. So it can't be a prank by my sister, or a false memory. My girlfriend and I couldn't have hallucinated another color at the same time. We had a long-distance relationship and only talked on the phone or texted. We never did any drugs at all, and there was no alcohol involved either. And, lastly, it wouldn't make sense for me to invent a story like this if it didn't actually happen. If I had to fabricate something, I would make it a lot more creepy and interesting, not this boring kitchen color change. I still have no explanation, besides it being a glitch in the Matrix. You could argue that it could be a Mandela effect or a switch to a parallel reality too, but I believe that this is debatable. All these things might essentially stem from the same root. Maybe more random details changed in my life, but I just don't notice it. A bit of context first. I live in a small town that, together with two other smaller towns from the neighboring state, compose a kind of cluster, like a triangle with a town on each tip. Let's call them Towns A, mine, Town B, and Town C. The towns are no more than 4 miles apart from each other, and are all connected. For as long as I'm alive, the road between Town A and B, and Town B and C, were paved, but the AC route remained a dirt road. I've been in both towns countless times, traveled these roads by bus, cars, motorcycle, bicycle, and even on foot for some occasions. I know these paths like I know the back of my hand. It's a beautiful place, surrounded by wooded hills, coffee and grape crops, rural communities, etc. So, it's 2019, and the prefectures of my town and Town C decide to pave the road between them. Since they're in different states, they agree to start paving its own side until the construction meets at the border. Great news for both towns. The construction begins. Every now and then I hear that the road is looking great. People would say things like, "I've been to Town C this weekend and the construction looks nice already," and "Can't wait till the road is finished," and so on. 2020 comes around and so does COVID. Right before the lockdown strikes, we learned that the road was almost finished. Constructions were close to meet each other at the state border. Around 1 month stuck indoors, we're desperate for a change of scenery and some fresh air. So, we decided to take a drive along town's B&C, enjoying the view and some music. We wouldn't even get out of the car, just drive. At this point, we had heard that the construction had finished and the road was now smooth and paved. I specifically remember my grandmother saying it as she went to Town C to deliver supplies to her sister at the time. One morning, we all hop in the car and just take off. We went to Town B and then Town C, but as we left Town C, ready to enter the road, we were shocked to find that nothing had changed. It was still the same old dirt road that we had known for decades. Confused, we returned home, noticing that we were the only ones on the road that day. We couldn't spot any sign of construction or new infrastructure. Absolutely nothing had changed. We'd heard so much about it from so many different people that it just made no sense. The only strange thing was that we didn't see anyone else on the road but us after we left Town C. It was a bit unusual, but nothing impossible at that time. Apart from all that, it was a beautiful day and we all had a great time. When we shared our experience with relatives and friends, they found it just as puzzling as we did. Some even suggested that we might have taken the wrong road, but we know that that's absolutely impossible. However, by the end of 2020, as things were trying to get back to normal, we decided to revisit the road. And, lo and behold, it was indeed paved, just as everyone had claimed before our first drive. My father jokingly suggests that we may have traveled in time, and sometimes I can't help but wonder if there's some truth to that. I'm not sure if this would be a glitch story or a paranormal story, but here it is. For several summers, I worked at my uncle's restaurant so that his employees could take turns at having vacations. I waited tables, washed dishes, mopped floors, and whatever else needed to get done. This was in West Texas, and the summers were very hot, often triple-digit temperatures for weeks. I had developed a system of cooling down every day when I got home. I walked the 6 blocks to my little apartment, came inside, and locked and deadbolted the door behind me, and stripped down naked in the front hallway. Then, I went straight to the bathroom and had a nice long shower. After I got dressed in pajama shorts and a t-shirt, I went to the kitchen and made myself a tall glass of water with lots of ice. I sipped several glasses of water while watching my TV shows. My routine never varied. One day I arrived home as usual, peeled off my sweaty, stinky shirt, jeans, socks, panties, and bra as usual, and headed to the bathroom for my shower. After dressing in my cool, comfy pajama shorts and a t-shirt, I went to the kitchen for my long-awaited ice water. I arrived in the kitchen and was about to get a glass from the dishwasher when something on the counter caught my attention. It was a tall glass of water filled to the top with ice, just as I always made it. It was slightly frosty on the outside, as though the glass had been in the freezer. I stood there for a minute trying to understand what had happened. I carefully walked around my apartment. Of course, nobody was there, and both doors were locked and deadbolted. Nobody else had keys to my apartment. I decided it was just a nice, sympathetic gesture from someone or something, and that I would accept it as such. I was grateful. I have no explanation for this incident, and it never happened again. So that, my friends, was this week's glitch in the Matrix collection. A collection of stories that... Hang on, I'm stretching. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that. Group of stories that, I don't know, infer how weird life is. They demonstrate the awkwardness of the source code of our existence. They're weird. Strange. Some of them are kind of creepy. But for the most part, Glitch, here we go. Glitch encompasses the weird and strange more than it does the terrifying, and I think that's why we all enjoy them, right? They're like paranormal stories, but not with ghosts. They're paranormal... Supernatural's the right word. I did not mean paranormal. Maybe they're paranormal. I don't know. They're strange stories. They're weird. They're cool. They're fun. Hopefully, you all enjoyed them and are appreciating this rambling of things. I didn't plan this outro out whatsoever. Should have done that. Anyways, yeah, good collection of stories. And again, hopefully you did enjoy them. And of course, if you have a story you want to share, please do go to astheravendreams.com. From there, you can submit your story to me. Glitch stories, always appreciated and definitely needed right now. Next week may end up being a compilation, just because I don't have any stories right now for next week, so we'll see how it goes. I might do the comp I was going to do at the end of the month next week, and then at the end of the month just do new stories again. Yeah, that might work. Anyways, if you did enjoy it, please hit that thumbs up button. If you're new to the channel and enjoyed what you heard, please consider subscribing. If you want more glitch stories, well, again, every Monday pretty much, sometimes on Tuesdays, depending on how the week goes, but yeah. You can also join Patreon memberships, get early access to content like this, or you can do a super thanks, which is just a little bit of support to the channel. Again, never expected and always appreciated. Yeah. And then the last thing, not the last thing, you can do a bunch of other things if you want. You can go for a walk, you can enjoy a nice Reese's if you're not allergic to peanut butter or chocolate. I don't recommend it if you are allergic, because it might do bad things for you. You can watch other YouTube videos. You can play Roblox if you so choose. Join my Roblox cult, as I said the one time. No one's joined yet. Anyways, the other thing you can do is leave me a comment on this video with the word of the week. Now, the word of the week is whenever I give you a word from a list of words I took from people who gave me words. And then you use said word in a sentence in the comments section, which, one, boosts the video in the algorithm, and two, allows me to screenshot your comment the next week and put it on the screen. On the screen right now, and probably whenever I was talking about algorithms, is the collection of all the comments last week. Didn't have a whole lot of submissions last week, but encompass is one of those words that some people don't necessarily use in everyday language, so I get it. Unfortunately, this week the word is also going to be one that's not used in common language. But before we get to that, thank you so much to every single person who submitted their comments. I appreciate it. You're amazing. If you didn't get around to it, that's totally okay. I still appreciate you, and you're still amazing. Yeah. This week, the word of the week is allegiance. A-L-L-E-G-I-A-N-C-E. And the non-political definition is a devotion or loyalty to a person, group, or cause. Now, I do not do politics on this channel, so please do make your comment apolitical, as in not political. This is an escape. I don't want that kind of stuff on the comments. You're all very lovely and kind people, though, so I know you'll be able to maintain your comments within that barrier, so... You can also use allegiant, which is the adjective version of allegiance. Yeah, so just allegiance is the word, and it's the devotion or loyalty to a person, group, or cause. Single definition, simple. Good luck. Anyways, friends, I hope you all have a beautiful day. I hope you remember you are loved, you are valid, you are important, you're the best you that you can be. Never let anyone tell you otherwise, and please do not forget it. And until I see you again, my lovely friend, much love. And sleep well.